we've never needed them. We have never really asked anything of them. You know, they'll say they sent some troops to Afghanistan or this or that. And they did. They stayed a little off the front lines.
I'd served 5 tours in Afghanistan, many alongside my American colleagues. We shed blood, sweat and tears together. And not everybody came home.
But to this president, that just counts as nothing. In fact, the sacrifice that they made and the fact that they answered when called upon after 9/11 is completely disregarded. And the disrespect that comes with that goes beyond just being called disrespect. It's dishonor.
We get along very well with NATO, I think, but I've always said, will they be there if we ever needed them? And that's really the ultimate test, and I'm not sure of that.
Retired British Corporal Andy Reid corrected Trump today. He lost 3 limbs in Afghanistan.
The Americans asked us to get involved in that conflict, so he clearly knows that we were there.
Well, I think my initial reaction, obviously, with like everybody else, is rage and anger.
They stayed a little off the front lines.
A man who claims to be the healthiest in the world, but faked bone spurs to dodge Vietnam, just told the families of over 1,100 dead NATO soldiers that their loved ones stayed a little off the front lines. Well, to that, I say this very deliberately. Fuck you, Donald Trump. Veterans worldwide are furious. Not annoyed, not disappointed. Furious. One Marine Corps veteran's response has gone viral, a raw, unfiltered condemnation.
I and millions of other veterans woke up today with not knowing the amount of dishonor that has just been thrust upon their shoulders.
The veteran, known online as Large Man Abroad, said that in a video that has resonated across the veteran community. Because what Donald Trump said in his Fox News interview from Davos isn't just wrong, it's a desecration. A man who has never served a day in uniform, who received 5 draft deferments to avoid Vietnam, not only doubted NATO's willingness to aid the US, but also erased the sacrifices of every Allied soldier who answered America's call after the 9/11 attacks.
We get along very well with NATO, I think, but I've always said, will they be there if we ever needed them? And that's really the ultimate test, and I'm not sure of that. I know that we would have been there, or we would be there. But will they be there? And let's hope that that never happens. We've never needed them. We have never really asked anything of them. You know, they'll say they sent some troops to Afghanistan or this or that. And they did. They stayed a little off the front lines.
457 British service members didn't come home from Afghanistan. 158 Canadians didn't come home. Soldiers from Denmark, France, Germany, Poland, Australia, they didn't come home. They died in the same valleys, the same firefights, the same IED blasts as American troops, side by side. And the President of the United States just spat on their graves. Large Man Abroad didn't mince words about what Trump's comments represent.
This is something that goes beyond nationality. It's something that goes beyond alliances. Honoring the dead, honoring the war dead is something sacred. It's something hallowed, a kind of fidelity that you show and hold between you and someone that you stood side by side with is something that's really hard to put into words. But it's something that goes back to time immemorial. It's something that is held in deep reverence of all peoples throughout the world. That's why these comments that the president makes about the NATO troops and the contributions that they've made during the 20-year campaign in Afghanistan. The UK lost 457 troops. I think second was Canada. But to this president, that just counts as nothing. In fact, the sacrifice that they made and the fact that they answered when called upon after 9/11 is completely disregarded. And the disrespect that comes with that goes beyond just being called disrespect. It's dishonor.
He's speaking from personal experience, from actually serving alongside the allies that Trump has slandered. This is what Trump cannot understand. He doesn't understand the sense of brotherhood. He's never had an ally that he hasn't sought to exploit. No friends that weren't also business contacts. And Large Man Abroad calls him out.
Donald Trump is a coward. Donald Trump avoided being drafted into the Vietnam War. He avoided putting his life on the line when his country called upon him. And it used to be, those who came from wealthier houses, noble houses, were expected to serve in the military. If you're going to be in politics, you had to serve in the military if you're going to be taken seriously. But this is someone who does everything to degrade and belittle the contributions and sacrifices that people from the military, no matter what time in history that is, simply because of his insecurity. Donald Trump just doesn't measure up. This is not a tough man. This isn't a brave man. This is a man of self-worship. This is a man who idolizes greed. This is a man who is brutish and brutal in his actions and in his policy. This is a man lacking any kind of honor. So I don't feel any kind of surprise when I hear him say such dishonorable things.
A man of self-worship, a man who idealizes greed, a man lacking any kind of honor. That's a United States Marine describing his commander-in-chief. And he is goddamn right. The American veteran wasn't, of course, alone in his outrage. Here's a clip from Alistair Carnes, a British veteran who served 5 tours in Afghanistan and now serves as the UK's Armed Forces Minister. Carnes' response was equally devastating.
We all stood together, shoulder to shoulder, and responded. On Afghanistan, frankly, this is utterly ridiculous. Many courageous and honourable service personnel from many nations fought on the front line. Many fought way beyond it. I'd served 5 tours in Afghanistan, many alongside my American colleagues. We shed blood, sweat and tears together, and not everybody came home. These are bonds, I think, forged in fire, protecting US or shared interests, but actually protecting democracy overall. And I'd suggest whoever believes these comments, come have a whiskey with me, my colleagues, their families, and importantly the families of those that have made the ultimate sacrifice for both of our nations.
Carnes reminded Trump of the history he clearly doesn't know.
So tracking some comments made that NATO troops stayed a little off the front lines in Afghanistan and that the US has never necessarily needed us. Well, it's a real shame to hear that. The only time NATO has ever enacted Article 5 was after the 9/11 terrorist attacks, when the United States and the world rallied to the support of the US. Our agencies, our forces, our politicians.
Article 5, an attack on one is an attack on all. In the entire history of NATO, 75 years, it has been invoked exactly once. And it was invoked to defend America, not the other way around. America didn't ride to Europe's rescue, the world rode to America's. Carnes also reminded viewers of something else, something that cuts to the very foundation of why these alliances exist.
It's also worth reminding everyone here in World War II, more British troops landed on D-Day than any other nation. It was an allied response, and united we conquer.
And then he delivered words that should be carved into stone at every military academy in the alliance.
Now, some advice for anyone who may be listening. There are 2 great sayings worth remembering. Number 1, there's only one worse thing than working with allies. That is working without them. And when you do, always remember, never above, never below, always side by side.
Even Keir Starmer, a prime minister who has been conspicuously careful not to wade into Trump's controversies, felt compelled to respond.
I will never forget their courage, their bravery, and the sacrifice that they made for their country. There are many also who were injured, some with life-changing injuries. And so I consider President Trump's remarks to be insulting and frankly appalling. And I'm not surprised they've caused such hurt to the loved ones of those who were killed or injured.
When a leader known for diplomatic restraint breaks that restraint, it tells you something about how far the line was crossed. And a large man abroad put his finger on exactly what that line was. He described cleanly and directly what Trump has done to America's standing in the world.
The man has simply dismantled every infrastructure of respect that our allies have for us. In fact, what allies do we have at this point? And that should be the real question, because this is no longer the United States, the president, the commander-in-chief, insulting allies. This is the commander-in-chief, the president, insulting those who used to be allies. This is him trying to rewrite history by erasing the contributions that our brothers in arms, no matter where they're from, actually made. And it's disgusting, it's vile, it's aberrant. But it's allowed to happen.
What Trump said fits a pattern. This is the same man who, just last year, said he would encourage Russia to do whatever the hell they want to NATO allies who don't pay enough. The same man who for years has been calling NATO obsolete. The same man who questioned whether Article 5 should even exist. This pattern isn't subtle. He's not criticising NATO's bureaucracy or pushing for reform. He's systematically attacking the very idea that America has allies worth keeping. To Trump, NATO is a transaction, a bill that other countries aren't paying. He cannot fathom that soldiers from 32 nations trained together, bled together, died together because they believed in something larger than a balance sheet. And then, in a moment that captured the weight of what Trump has done, this American veteran did something he should have never felt the need to do. He apologised on behalf of the millions of veterans who share his outrage.
But to anyone out there, especially from the other NATO countries, who are aggrieved and deeply insulted, as you should be, by the comments that our president has made, I would like to apologize. And it's not my place to apologize, but I feel it necessary to do so. And for you to understand that millions of veterans, probably 99% of veterans, understand and know and appreciate all the sacrifices that our brothers in arms and sisters in arms have made with us, for us, and we hold you in high regard. And many of us, until our dying days, always will. No matter where the chips fall between our countries, you will always have our respect.
This is, sadly, what MAGA has brought America to. Barely back in office, Trump threatened to seize Greenland from a NATO ally, threatened to make Canada part of the US, threatened to cut support for NATO altogether, and has now told the families of the dead that their loved ones were cowards who hid from the fight.
They stayed a little back, a little off the front lines.
An American veteran felt compelled to apologise to the world for his president. Think about that for a moment. A man who served his country, speaking to allies who bled alongside him, saying, "I'm sorry," not for something that he did, but for what his country's leader said about their sacrifice. But good sir, should you ever see this, you do not owe us an apology. It is civilians like me who owe you, and all who served, our gratitude. I say this as a British citizen whose country lost 457 service members in Afghanistan. You have nothing to apologise for. Your president does. The veteran was blunt about what this all means.
1 out of 3 people in the United States still support this, and they're going to hear this, and it's going to make them feel uncomfortable, but still at the end of the day, they'll support it because they're all part of a cult. A grand American cult that does nothing but work towards the destruction of America and ruin the lives of the American people and people worldwide.
The only people who can hear Trump claim that Allied troops stayed off the front lines and not find it abysmal are those who have stopped thinking for themselves entirely. Information that contradicts the leader simply doesn't penetrate, because it's a cult. Most veterans know the truth. They remember who was beside them when the bullets started flying. And it wasn't Donald Trump.